Great. Let me start off with the easiest question. Why are you guys doing what you're doing? So you decided to move. Let's start with Abhishek first. You decided to move out of Puma and go at it yourself. Take a big move to buying a manufacturing unit. Talk us through your decision criteria. Why you decided to do it. Why now's the time?
Thanks, Evie. First and foremost, glad to be here. I've been hearing about this terrace of Matrix partners for years. You guys have marketed it very well. It's my first opportunity to come here. Pleasure meeting you guys. Yes, I spent, I might sound old, but almost 2 decades in sportswear industry. Corporate, was with Reebok initially for 3 years, 17 years at Puma, and was doing multiple markets in Puma. And had the opportunity to, at Puma, keep going with more and more markets. Ultimately realized that you live only once. I don't know whether you live only once or what, but at least it seems like you live only once. And had deep inside the intent to be an entrepreneur. And then decided to not do more of the same. I must admit that would be undermining my journey at Puma, because there, which I believe that was a clear startup. It was not a corporate job by all means, but I really wanted to create for India. Your data, and I know that the investment world likes data, and that's true, because if you look at any part of sports, nutrition, wellness, it's a 4x market in the next 10 years. To all that you said, young population, when the basics are getting taken care of, people start investing into themselves. And health and fitness, wellness becomes an automatic choice. And I saw that India, on one side, is growing, and on the other side, it is not a market which is straight a linear one, right? Otherwise, in my category, the biggest brand would have been the biggest brand, not the 4th largest brand. So India doesn't really follow a trend, right? I mean, it is unique, it is nuanced. So I saw that opportunity, having been in the industry for a while, and also looking forward. I thought, this is my time. Was very, very, and I also didn't want to really do it in a very typical D2C brand in sportswear. So stitch together something which I believe is quite futuristic.
No, you got to give more details in that. So he didn't go through, let me raise $5-10 million and create a brand. Why don't you just take them through the decision process there as well?
Well, look, I mean, unfortunately, like some of you, I can see I'm not a 20s entrepreneur. Damn, I'm not even a 30s entrepreneur, right? I am a mid-40s entrepreneur. So, which didn't mean much, but the fact that, I had to kill my dogma, of having been in the industry for too long. I really feel that it becomes a dogma. So I had to kill that. But on the other side, I thought that I would like to see something, I would like to maximize my opportunity to succeed. And when I looked at it, I saw that, if you have to create a sportswear platform in India, it's not about, you raise some capital, you go D2C, you create a couple of products. I wanted to really stitch together a very unique platform with a clear vision to build India's largest sports platform. So created Agilitas, worked with, a couple of my friends colleagues who have been with me for 15, 18 years that I knew. We set up Agilitas, raised both private equity and growth capital money right at the beginning. Did an acquisition of a manufacturing company. Hey, who does a manufacturing company, right? I mean, footwear, India's largest sports footwear manufacturer. We acquired that 100%, which makes 12 million pairs of footwear, makes for all the best global brands except one. And we believe that it was very unique, because in India, when you have a very vertical thinking, when you solve from manufacturing to retail, you have a very unique, right from margin to speed to also the business model really solves for itself. Because today, Mochiko shoes that we acquired this year will be a 1,050 crore plus 100 crores plus of EBITDA margin company right at the beginning. Stitched this uniquely. And now, on the consumer side, we're building not one, but not 10, because we see there are multiple India and, solving for sportswear with at least 3, if not 4 brands. So at the capability level, building certain capabilities at the group level, which helps every brand, but from a brand positioning, go-to-market, design perspective, it will be very unique identities, from a price band to positioning. That also gives us the opportunity to chase today 100 million TAM, which in my opinion is probably the success formula for consumer businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So Abhishek's made like fantastic strategic choices. One error, he didn't take money from us, but everything else seems right. I'll go to Naresh next. Naresh, so walk us, you were at Myntra, you saw that journey as well, and then you decided to take an entire shift and take a full bet into Curefit. So in a sense, taking that bet into sports, fitness and movement much earlier than some of the others, right? So walk us through what the assumptions were at that point of time and what you've learned, and now as CEO of the firm, how you're thinking of future.
Sure. I mean, I'd love to paint this as some visionary thing that I did. I could see into the future that the fitness. I was basically following Mukesh Bansal into his next company, right? But all jokes aside, I think growing up, I've always been extremely passionate about sports and fitness. Both my parents were in the space. My dad was a cricketer. My mom's been in the fitness industry for many years. It was always something as a kid I used to dabble with. Maybe I'll grow up someday, work for Manchester United or an NBA franchise. But it's just one of those things that, you just think of as a kid and it's never going to happen. But then came along this opportunity that, it's a funded startup. It's intelligent people work here. I thought, this could be the closest I can get to that dream of, working in the space that, you've been following all your life. So took the plunge at that point of time with Curefit. Honestly, can't say that I could have foreseen what the journey would have been after that. Or it was for me a safe bet. There were a lot of familiar people. It was a space I was passionate in. It was something different that was happening. And yeah, I think I decided to take the plunge at that point of time. But as time has evolved, I think, what occurs to me about this space, especially fitness, is that India is unfortunately one of the most backward countries in terms of fitness. The fitness penetration levels are lowest globally and by a distance. Just to give you a statistic, 0.4% of Indian population has a gym membership at any point in time. This number is 22% in the US. Okay, you'll say there's urban, rural, poverty line, all of that stuff. Bangalore, this number is 4.5%. New York City is 30%. So, and that's not going to stay that way. I mean, it would be completely contrarian to any other global trend if India continues to remain like this, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line. So the ability to, shape that as one company to make that kind of industry impact, to shape that, and then always tell, folks in my company, right, like if 30 years down the line, someone's going to write a book about the journey of fitness in India, there is no way they're not going to mention cult. And, if you do well, your name is probably going to be there in that book, right? So that's sort of what has, and very honestly, this is not the thought process I had when I joined. This is what I've developed since then. And it's something that's also not riding a trend. There is no, e-commerce level trend of fitness that's happening in India right now. I mean, don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but this is not e-commerce. This is not,
It's not going to be overnight.
Yeah, this is not the smartphone trend. This is a long, patient journey that you need to be on. Which also means that, it's not a company that, we're building for the next 5-10 years. This is something that we're hoping lasts decades. And to be able to shape part of that journey is something that I feel, not many companies give that opportunity. To lead it from the front is a unique opportunity, and that's sort of what keeps me going, wakes me up in the morning, and was what I think about when I go to sleep at night. So, yeah, I think it's just the ability to kind of create impact at a national level in an area where India desperately needs that impact.
Yeah, in fact, like, show of hands, how many of you guys have gone to a cult gym? Yeah, so clearly. Fantastic. I'll get to you, Mohit, next. So you were running a delivery services company that you sold to Zomato, and then you went to the obvious next industry of fitness rings. Yeah, so
I was creating TAM.
yeah. So you went from a tough and horrible business to an almost impossible business to build. So walk us through your thought process of why this and why you chose to do, of all things, electronics, durables, like stuff that India is not known for, and tell us your experience throughout.
Yeah, I think tough and horrible sounds about right. Um, my journey was actually like for a few years of after my computer science did write code, uh, basically built a delivery logistics company, sold to Zomato, built a delivery business, and always wanted to basically get back to health and fitness because of my interest in MMA, mixed martial arts. So after my Zomato journey, I decided I'll take a break and I'll think about an idea. Close the room, put some scented candles and some shit, and basically think about an idea. An idea never came. So I read some books, Atomic Habits, all that, basically usual stuff. Idea never came. So I thought like, okay, let me take a break and see what happens. So I went to this martial arts camp called Tiger Muay Thai. It's in Thailand. Obviously, it's in Phuket, and basically spent a few months training there. And found, actually was lucky to actually meet a few athletes who were training. Folks like Khalil Roundtree, who's a welterweight champion in MMA. Huge guy, like 6'5", and a few other athletes as well. I think Khabib was also training at that point in time, on and off. So got a little bit of opportunity to train with these guys.
You got into the ring with Khabib, and you're alive.
Got to the ring.
Got to the ring.
That's it. Yeah. Not sorry, I shouldn't train. I watched them train. But after training hours, got a chance to interact with them because we're staying in almost the same area. And they were using a bunch of devices to get data on their own body. And one of them actually made a statement that, like, look, we have more data about our cars than our own body. So I would love for all this information through my Whoop straps and my Aura rings and my CGM devices and my Apple watches, etc., to come to one platform. And I thought, yeah, that sounds like a good pastime for somebody on a vacation. And started writing the first version of the app back there in Thailand. Spoke to my previous startup co-founder, Vatsal, who was there in India, and we kept jamming on it. And I came back to India for a short break, started Ultrahuman, and after a few months, I said, like, look, we want to make devices that generate data from the human body, and I was really interested in this new form factor, which is CGM, glucose monitor, basically, and which was giving you insight into your food part of your lifestyle. And food was interesting because all wearables gave you insights about sleep, movement, etc., but none of them were around food. So we thought that let's do an experiment. Why don't we tweet about it and see how many people are interested about tracking their food through glucose. And my best guess was like maybe 500 people will join the waitlist in India. And I had 200 followers on Twitter, so I don't know why. So 200,000 people joined the waitlist. And there was some of our justification to raising the seed. And then we said, yo, looks like a business, makes sense. Then we released the waitlist, more people joined. Then we thought, oh, let's make more devices, and why don't we manufacture this time? So instead of using Abbott's standard CGM, why don't we make our own and make a device which basically could integrate with our CGM devices? And we made our own device. We set up a factory. Again, like, I don't know why, but there was COVID going on, and then we thought it'll be a nightmare to actually import devices. One of our friends actually told us this story that, and this guy ran a medical devices company, that this guy was doing close to like $10-12 million a month, so like $100 million in scale annually, and said like, look, we have been doing zero for the last 6 months because of COVID, and I have to send people with a backpack to take the goods out of factory and then travel, take a flight and come back. And that sounded like a nightmare business model. This was a factory in China. So we said, like, look, we can't get blocked as a business if we get into devices. So why don't we make in India? make in Bangalore or make next to basically this infamous junction called Silk Board. So we started doing that, got to the principles of CNC, hardware design, PCB manufacturing, soldering, firmware writing, designing on top, and then basically almost took 2 years to grow that business. Now, luckily, one of the largest and fastest growing players in this space. But I think it was mix of, I think, serendipity in many ways. We didn't know what to do next.
Yeah.
Maybe we know now.
Let's go to that page where I want to handle products. Yeah, so there are many themes. We try to be as abstract as possible so we could cover as much area as possible. The first one I want to cover is actually stuff around products, right? So this is footwear, apparel, equipment, all those pieces. And I think one of the, well, I wouldn't say misnomers, but we've always been riddled with India mein manufacturing nahi ho sakta, right? You can do many things, but you can't manufacture in India. That's one. And the second reality that we've been dealt with is to say a lot of stuff that's made abroad in India, by the time it comes to India, it's just too expensive for Bharat, etc. Right? So broadly, two themes that we at least find interesting. One is to say, what are products for India going to look like, right? And we did a bunch of primary and secondary work on this, and we heard like clear complaints from the consumer, right? Ki Bharat ke liye kya hai? I'm not going to wear tight leggings and do my, I can't walk in Jalandhar or in Kalamasheri with that, right? So why does my activewear not look more like loungewear? Was one of the things. So women had their own specific issues. There's multiple things around sports bras not solved. Many problems that they faced. Bharat itself has a problem on price point. It's just, they'll say the humidity is too high, I can't wear this. So there seems to be the need for lots of product innovation to cater to India and Bharat separately. India that sits in AC and Bharat that actually does the work, right? And there's another parallel theme which is adding to it, which is the whole BIS, PLI schemes, government trying to incentivize it, supply and vendor landscape getting built in India. And this is the right panel because you guys have taken contrary calls in some form to double down on India's manufacturing expertise, right? You've chosen to build curved PCB boards, is what he said, out of silk board. And you've chosen to acquire a factory and you're trying to get your products out of India as well. So just outlining what your thoughts are on how it is different and difficult to build for India, product first, and what kind of price points, what business models, how do you think about it? And second, what does that need from a supply landscape in some form that may not be intuitive for some of us sitting outside?
So I think specifically from electronic devices, biosensors perspective, and we make these devices, they have curved PCBs, that was the curved part he was referring to. I think when we started manufacturing, obviously we did evaluate China first. That, makes sense, let's do China. And one thing we realized pretty soon is that we're not shipping a product to people and then we expect it to be the only product that people would keep and forget any evolution of the product for the next few years. We want this product to evolve in terms of new firmware updates, new software updates, and then we evaluated that cost structure. So when you speak, like what we understood was that if you work with a Chinese manufacturer, if you have clarity on a fixed product and you can sell like 5 million devices, you have a fixed design which you don't want to evolve, then your cost structure with the China manufacturing is much better, significantly better, right? But if you want customization, China's cost is almost comparable to India, in some cases actually even higher. So in our scenario, we were looking at curved PCBs, curved batteries, flexible batteries, sensors that could withstand a little bit of curvature, etc. So we started building all of these things here, and surprisingly, electronics initially was not a huge problem. Apart from like curved PCBs, there are no curved PCBs printers here in India. So we had to figure out like some answers to build locally. The biggest problem initially was to match the aesthetics. And this was a funny thing that we used to go to our initially a collection of vendors and say like, look, we want a shiny finish on the ring because a ring is supposed to shine. This is not the shiny one. There's another kind of a shiny one, this one. And the vendor would say like, oh yeah, absolutely. We make some of these. It's called a drill bit. What do you mean? Well, no, you need a hard surface on top of it. It's usually tungsten carbide, and we'll make one of these for you, but it will look like a drill bit. So you guys would have seen a drill bit. Yes? It has like multicolored texture, etc. It's really hard because it has to drill through. And we were like, no, this is not what we need. We need like patchless, completely consistent surface finish. We're like, no, why do you need such a thing? And then like basically we ran out of ideas to convince these guys. The error rates were really high, terrible economics, obviously, initially. And then basically one day some guy in our team had this idea that, look, what sells in India? Cricket and Bollywood. So let's convince them pretty much Bollywood style. So this guy went to a vendor and said like, look, is this the ring that you would want Hrithik to wear? Right? Or Shah Rukh to wear? And they're like, no, absolutely not. So basically because of Kahona Pyar and DDLJ, the
vendor got convinced.
The vendor got convinced. And they're like, no, I'll try harder. I'll put extra man-hours into it because Hrithik is going to wear. So, and we had to actually show him the photo that Hrithik is wearing, by the way. So, so that took a little bit of convincing.
And how does it feel for you to, you're on the other side, you are the vendor here.
Well, making product, mine is a bit more nuanced in terms of product, brand, distribution. See, I'll tell you what is the biggest challenge in India to build sportswear. Biggest challenge in India, I'll go by one. Product. India still does not have raw materials which actually makes those products, great quality products. There's footwear. More than 50% of good sport shoes need materials which are not made in India. You look at apparel, performance fabric still is not solved in India. Second, whatever you do it, design thesis, because we have not built design sensibilities over years. Very difficult to get great design from yet. The education to the ecosystem is yet to be created. Sense of creating innovation is still, whether it is R&D to focusing on great product innovation, unique, not making more of the same, but making real innovation. And innovation can be in multiple types, materials, technology, fits, blah, blah, blah. So this is a challenge. Brand, I think over a period of time, we have not created pride for Indian brands in a category which is a fashion category, right? We don't have a history. We absolutely have no history of creating great brands. Distribution. In our country, retail is not solved. Multi-brand retail is not solved. So if you make a great product, even if you do a great community marketing, you do create some, where will you sell? The only way to sell, marketplaces, let's accept it. He has a background to that. He started it. is still on the promotional journey, right? Where price is key. It's become very difficult to build brands there. Direct to consumer does not, it is difficult from a customer acquisition perspective. So the only distribution available is monobrand stores. So you have to build a plethora of range of products where consumers want to come back every 3 months, right? So all the propositions are a challenge. If you keep that aside, there is an opportunity in all of this. Every category, you said, where is the opportunity? You can make great t-shirts, you can make fast turnarounds on making great t-shirts, as simple as that, to great shoes, to equipments, to accessories. Women is a very unsolved market in India. Kids is an overlooked market in India. So there's a huge lot of opportunity. So on one side there is a huge opportunity, and then the other side there is a problem. And let me get back, in places like equipment and footwear, you don't have great quality manufacturing, which is coming up. Hopefully you'll see a lot of changes there. So I'm just trying to say that while
is it an unsolvable problem? Is it capital? Is it time?
It's capital, time, mindset. So because look, the problem is not just that we cannot make great products. from manufacturing standpoint. We don't have the ecosystem of great quality materials. We don't have the ecosystem of great designers. We don't have innovation mindset. We don't have brand creation. We don't have not been able to create brands in fashion category. Oh, this brand I really want. Yes, there are a few exceptions coming up, but at scale. We haven't done it. There's no history, right? Distribution is the biggest problem to solve is distribution, right? Where will you go and sell? You create a great brand, I'm telling you, you'll end up with inventory, people don't scale beyond 100 crores. That's the biggest problem. So there are these challenges, and on the other side, what you showed, you can't even imagine. I saw 5 years back at Puma was a 1400 crore brand before COVID. During COVID, for obvious reasons, the first time Puma had a blip to 1200 crores. Can you imagine the year after that, Puma became a 3000 crore brand, right? So it's just unbelievable. The shift, the groundswell is there on fitness, sportswear. But it's about how can you stitch the thing together. And there is no direct answer. Capital, time, mindset, clear vision, all of this is required. I don't know whether I answered your question, but the problem is not whether we can make great products or not.
No, I'm hearing that you can, but it'll take that effort. Are you seeing the ecosystem evolve to cater to that? Like, is the vendor supply ecosystem maturing a little bit?
We are solving for it, right? From a sports footwear perspective. Continuously, can you make products which tomorrow make 15,000 rupees retail? Is Mochiko still there? No. Will we be there? Yes. Will it happen very soon? Yes. So there are these efforts that are happening. Can someone create a great Indian brand in the next 2-3 years which scales, which can create $200 million of business? I firmly believe they can. Can one, so I think at every level.
What is that like? Because there's also many price points that you'll have to hit for India versus Bharat versus.
So, so India is a very unique market. Aspiration is absolutely important, right? Otherwise, you're a category player. You sell because it's available. Sell on availability. That's distribution, right? And you go and sell for $700, $1,000. There are people who are profitably doing that business. There is that business. That will also probably grow, but India is definitely moving up. So aspiration is absolutely, the logo aspiration. You look at the swoosh there and people say, I want that swoosh, I want a Jordan, I want that swoosh, So you need to create real aspiration for the brand. On the other side, it's an absolute misnomer to think that you can sell at a price which is traded up at a place where you just lose. I have seen this, you just lose it's a geometrical progression of
every
decline,
200
right?
bucks you lose.
It's actually doing that. So how do you build aspiration and fuse that with affordability? And the balance of that is the real mantra, other than setting up the supply chain and the entire. That's the real mantra of creating brands in India.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And you've now shifted from being the marketplace where you squeeze margins from Puma, etc., to now creating your own brand. What's that journey been like? How do you look at India versus Bharat versus TG and price points?
Before you paint me as I squeezed margin, it's not like we made money.
He started the
journey either.
He started the discounts. Naresh was the real Myntra guy, I'm telling you. He grew, by the way. I mean, lot of fashion growth. Those days, you should give him a lot of credit because the early days of Myntra. But he started the journey which we are still trying to move out of.
Sorry, your question. I completely forgot what your question was.
No, in your own evolution of what you've seen 8 to 10 years on, it was just crazy discount first, and then now we're used to discounts. And now the question is, are there price points even viable for Bharat while still being viable, like he said, from a GTM perspective? And now you're creating your own brands. So how do you think of pricing strategy, sourcing, etc.?
No, I think, first of all, 100% agree. I think online is, it's really tough. Making the unit economics work, building a brand, competing with other, it's really tough. So I think the trend is very clear. You can just see that anybody who's making money is making money offline. It's just impossible, I think, today to build an online-only brand. So I think that, fortunately, my own experience helped me realize that early on in the journey, and I think, that's I think, something that's quite clearly visible. I think what we have realized, I think I'm definitely the least qualified on this panel to talk about products and manufacturing in India, but when we set out on this journey, we said, like, what is going to be differentiated about Cult, right? And we said, look, we have 1.5 lakh people working out every day. There has to be something that we know that other people don't, just because we can see these people on a daily basis, right? And few of the things, like, I've understood, definitely a big trend towards, just comfort when it comes to apparel. Literally, if you go into a Cult center right now and just scan everybody, you would probably think you'll see a lot of Nike, Puma, Adidas. 20% of people are wearing that. Wow. Decathlon is the most popular brand. HRX is very popular. Sprinkling of campus, etc. See a lot of that, right? Clothing-wise, cotton is the most common material that you will see. People want that. I mean, people keep articulating it. I want something breathable. I want, I don't want it sticking to my body and, like, it's showing off, like, my paunch or whatever. So, big trend towards comfort feeling fabrics. So, lot of where apparel is moving towards is, it's still polyester. It is still, the same thing, but feels a lot more lighter on the body. So, words consumer use, light feel hona chahiye, breathable hona chahiye, you shouldn't stick to my body, etc. Right? Tights, the first thing women say is, when I do any kind of movement, it starts rolling up my thigh, and that's extremely embarrassing. Yeah. So, it's these kind of things. I mean, these are not principles with which I believe, international brands were designed upon. And can an Indian brand recognize this? We're of course trying, and there are many brands that are trying this. Can Indian brands recognize what is unique about the Indian consumer? In terms of footwear, right? I think we've all grown up wearing open footwear. Our feet are wider, and shoes aren't designed for that. So typically, people buy sports shoes, and it's biting you in the feet somewhere, but still feel like, I have to wear this because this is a known brand, etc. Another trend that we're definitely seeing is, I think, for a long period of time, you would buy one sports shoe and you would wear it to everything. Whether it's running or cricket, cycling, everything. Now consumers want that activity-specific gear. You can see, Perfly in Decathlon is something that's becoming very popular. Badminton courts mandate you to wear non-marking shoes. People are buying that. People want a cricket shoe. That's a cricket shoe. I don't want to wear my general trainers. But 2,000 rupees ka. Usse zyada nahi. So I think that's another trend that we're seeing, that, like, this whole 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000 price point is where we're at least seeing a big opportunity for an Indian brand to come in, create something unique, designed for the Indian consumer, and make it big. But let's see, I think we're still very early on in that journey. Manufacturing-wise, to be very honest, like, we started off just like any other brand, mostly China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, slowly moving, but I wouldn't say that, we've really figured out India manufacturing yet. Our equipment is 100% China manufactured, still doesn't seem to be any way around it. Despite the huge freight costs and all of that, it still seems to make more economic sense to manufacture equipment out of China. But yeah, hoping these things change over time. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm seeing a big change in a hurry happening right now. It's going to take time. It takes, visionaries like Abhishek. I think genius move to, want to create brands, but you start with a manufacturing facility. I think that kind of thinking, more entrepreneurs coming in and really understanding the entire value chain, I think that's what it's going to take to really transform products and brands in India.
Well, that's fair. I think our belief also is some of it will just, the movement on the supply may be faster than we think, because you can skip a lot of generations of suboptimal manufacturing practices and directly go to what we need right now, and may help us. So when somebody like Abhishek will take it over, he'll then put it as what he needs. He needs EVA, he needs ETP, he'll figure out what he needs and build for that versus going through journeys in between. But I want to handle the topic on how people are, just switch to the next one. Yeah, before we get to facilities and infrastructure, which we'll handle next, I want to also talk about measurement, awareness, lifestyle choices. So, and I'll tell you, the story is when we did our primary work, this came out, right? Ki kitty party mein people are discussing ki kitne steps kiye. And this is like women who are like 55 years old, barely speak in English, and that's her, this thing. That's the competition they had. And depending on who had more steps, she would get to have one more bowl of the kheer, right? So, but we found stuff that wasn't very, it just felt like a very India phenomenon, ki steps count karo, calorie count karo, measure karo, ye, and all of that. So, but I was corrected myself to saying that, it's percolated a lot more into how people think of fitness. And they have their own ways. Ki Tuesday I don't eat breakfast and Thursday I skip dinner. So they have their own ways of intermittent fasting in some form. Just wanted to get your view, Mohit. You're sitting on data for a bunch of folks. What are you seeing on awareness, what to measure, what not to measure? And then with you, I'd like to also explore, is that translating into action? Like, are people coming to the gym a lot more? Are people making that movement to say, or is it just lip service, right? Ek to hai January mein to everybody will take a membership, but then how many of them really continue? And I think how that relates to sleep, exercise, and all that. So let's just explore some of those topics, and then we'll head to facilities.
I can take this from a data perspective. So, one of the ways to define our users for our cohorts has been actually like, is this user a steps user, a sleep user, an HRV user, and maybe sometimes a temperature user. So when we plot this month on month to see how the engagement is actually growing within these type of behaviors. So obviously when we started, a lot of people actually just wanted, oh, I need a tracker, give me something. And most of them actually track steps. From that, I think sleep is now increasingly becoming for 35% of people like the core thing that they want to see. Like the behavior is wake up, see your sleep score, and then decide how you should be feeling or what you should be fixing broadly. And then the newest emerging trend, like around 12 to 15%, India is around 7-8%, I would say, in heart rate variability as the newest emerging, fastest growing marker of health. And that's really interesting because heart rate variability is not very intuitive. It's definitely a harder marker to change. Like you can wake up, see your steps, and you'll see like, look, I have 1,000 steps, so maybe I can do another 9,000 and I'll do 10,000 basically in a day.
Yeah, that's one of my questions. How do I game that? I get such shitty scores on my HRV.
Yeah. You can see the app, but yeah. And I think from that, basically, of course, like people are asking more questions on sleep. Within sleep, first thing is duration, and then now, oh, am I getting enough REM, NREM, basically how many disturbances within the sleep, is my HR dropping fast enough, etc., etc., etc. What is my temperature profile during sleep? And then the last layer is HRV, where people actually now, just like the way you asked, people are asking us questions like, look, I have this number, what do I do with it? And this engagement with this number, in some ways, gives us a sense of how people are thinking about their health overall. So HRV interventions would be like your strength training and basically working on your recovery, stress profile, etc., etc. And I think we have seen over the last 2 years, and I think statistically significant over the last 11 months, because we didn't have data before that, like the cohorts were too small, just because you're a VC. Basically, the fact that HRV is growing around, I think the fastest growing metric. We believe that there is this aspiration layer getting created much faster than what it was maybe a few years ago. And it's quantitative, it's easily measurable, but I think if people are engaging more with a new marker, they will discover more ways to get healthy. They'll get into strength training, they'll get into, like, not have this view of strength training as something that actually makes you bulky or basically is not for me, or it's not useful, etc., versus basically see it as a way of life. And from a data perspective, I think yes, what we are also trying to create is create these dinner table conversations. I think our KPI we keep thinking about is how do we get more people to talk about sleep scores, right? How do we get more people to talk about like basically heart rate variability? How do we get more people to like subscribe to our international guru like Huberman, right? Basically, we call American Ramdev Baba, basically. Yeah, yeah. But how do we get like basically all like Huberman has like close to 80 million subscribers. Joe Rogan has like 45 million-ish. I think the other way around. Similarly, Peter Attia has like 10 million subscribers. So all of these folks are like somewhere reading about the science, trying to get into more complex stuff. Some of that is obviously fad, which makes sense because I think fads have to exist for people to actually be interested in this space. Right? I mean, in any high growth space, there has to be fad too, for people to actually come back and discover new things. And we believe that I think that aspiration is now growing much faster than what it was. People are prioritizing rest, recovery, strength training way more than just activity. People are getting into precision supplementation way more. And I think the way to think about this is, oh, does it have a million user TAM? I don't think so. In India, does it have a million user TAM? Absolutely not. Does India have 100,000 people who can pay for something like this? Absolutely yes. Would these 100,000 people become a million in the next 5 years? 100%. Yeah. Right? Those are the numbers that we play with. Look small.
I think some of those have already started, like just wearables. I was surprised by how much wearables we sell in India, watches. Just people using that for steps.
Those are technically not health monitoring watches. Yeah. So,
but for us, fads travel faster than
350 million watches get sold every year, out of which India is the market leader. Right? Apple Watch sales per year would be around 35-40 million. They control 88% of the sales. I mean, in terms of revenue. But all 12%.
What did you say? 350 total?
Million watches get sold every year. Okay. So basically, around 30 million watches control 88% of the market in terms of revenue. So the remaining 12% is what everybody's fighting for, and it's a downhill battle in some ways. Basically, like, and this is one of the Chinese guys was telling us, like, India is not for beginners. I said, why? Because like you guys sell our goods at a cheaper rate in India than we sell in China. Like, makes sense. So that is a different battle. Of course, there is a differently sized battle with Apple Watches.
But I would assume that's sort of necessary as well. You need to make that first transition into a 1,500 rupee watch to then say, oh, you know what, this is not even accurate. Let me now move up the ladder to maybe a 4,000 rupee watch. And then that, maybe it's a gradation curve?
It is a gradation curve. I think the need and the aspiration is getting created by, in some ways, visual mimicry, right? In the first phase, which is like, oh, I need an Apple Watch lookalike. So I'll take a 3,000 rupee watch, which looks like an Apple Watch, feels like an Apple Watch, but is not Apple Watch, right? And then the next upgrade is, oh, I'll get like a middle-ranged product, which does better health tracking, better monitoring. It's a great product for health tracking, but still not 35, 40,000. And then some people upgrade eventually. But that aspiration curve is definitely happening. And I think in India, I think we are still in the 100,000 to a million user zone, not beyond that. I don't think there are more than 100,000 people yet who actually can pay for these things. There's this famous concept of, this is a video by Equinox where they were talking about like, look, we want to serve the $30,000 customer. They released a $30,000 gym basically recently, right? I don't know why, but what they said was like, look, two core principles. One is, if people can spend $10,000 in 2 years to buy Apple goods, they can spend more in their fitness. This is obviously American TAM. And potentially our LTV should be 70 years. And if you do a great job, 100 years. This is like, sure, right? I mean, if you do a great job, of course, right? I mean, you can you get more Brian Johnsons in place, but then, this LTV does not exist in any category. Should not exist in any category. Like, how many EdTech courses will you sell, right? to the same user. I mean, no, I mean it's a different industry, no judgment about that. But then, the LTV is so lucrative that it gives you like so much of confidence to reinvest back in the same user, rebuild for the same user, build multiple types of products for the same user, and build those niche cases today, but eventually they'll become mass.
Yeah, I think echo the wearables thing. I think it's also becoming, I think, a race to the bottom. The highest selling and boat noise are all converging at 999 rupees smartwatches. So I don't know what to expect there. But yeah, zooming out to fitness, right? I think. Yeah, I feel like, as we're building this category, there are two opposing forces in fitness. I think one is, awareness is very much there. I mean, we can't say, India is unaware as a market on the virtues of fitness, sleep, nutrition, etc. But the opposing forces are like very, very like basal, like, consumerism, like more unhealthy food, Swiggy, Zomato, traffic, pollution, all of that, right? So India is on the one hand, like growing in awareness, need for fitness, champions of fitness, etc. Well, there is this opposing force. I mean, literally, we define our radius of a gym as 11 to 15 minutes driving distance in peak. I think that's now like 100 meters out of my apartment complex. That's how hard it is to travel in Bangalore. So yeah, I think it really seeing these two opposing forces and fitness, while it is growing, I mean, there are clear evidences of it. I mean, Bangalore, just pre-cult to post-cult, I think is a different fitness market. I mean, it was not this commonplace. There are more gyms now in every micro market that I see visibly. There are more gyms opening up, and it is because players are taking action in cities like Bangalore. But there are these two opposing forces, which is why, it is so much easier to just track steps or track sleep, etc., right? Rather than, haul your ass out of bed, drive to a gym and work out. So I think that opposing force is something that, we'll constantly be battling, which is why I said at the beginning of this talk as well, it is not e-commerce booming industry. It is not mobile phones. This is a patiently, if you're in this business, and I have a few friends here that I know are in the fitness and sports business, be patient, guys. I mean, this is not, you're not going to win this market in a year, 2 years. But to patiently build market after market, take your time to figure out where to play, understand each market, each consumers, build patiently. This is not a category you can blitz open. I know, we're saying that cult has raised like, 400 million. We've done all of these things. But the one thing I have learned, and we spoke about this earlier as well, things like these, change will be gradual. It will not just happen like that. I think we just have to, you have to keep at it. You have to really think in increments of 5-10 years, and not in like increments of few quarters, a year, 2 years ahead. You need to really be thinking really long term when it comes to building anything in fitness and sports today in India.
That makes sense. And in your case, when you do think, is there a reasonable chunk of portfolio that you'll build thinking for the sports market as well in footwear, and what are the branding messages you'll need to land in some form?
Look, first, in terms of, people and I hear both of them, and it's absolutely right, because people have to make the choice to move to these products. Thankfully, people in sportswear are lucky buggers. And I tell you why, because it's also a basic utility. You have to wear shoes, you have to wear t-shirts, you have to wear clothing, right? It's not a choice that you have to make to go to the gym or, track.
The market exists. Yeah.
The market exists, and there is a fundamental shift of the kind of clothing and footwear people are using. So you can have a less active life, and yet it's a fashion trend, you're moving there. So it's not just hinged on really playing sport and fitness.
That's
right?
fair. I think the tailwinds are stronger there just from a look and aesthetic perspective, athleisure.
Yeah.
Well.
So, I mean, in terms of specific product, if you heard what I said before, I think our solve is how do we stitch this absolutely phenomenal opportunity with this incredible complexity of building product, brand, and distribution, which comes with, so, and that's what we are doing. It's like, how do you make Indians really, how do you create a brand for India today in this category where there is aspiration? Yeah. How do you create products which are design oriented, which is competing with the best of the world, and also at a price which more and more people want to pay? And then in this complex distribution structure with the lack of retail or multi-brand retail, how do you really navigate through? How do you open, if we have to, next year, with a couple of our brands, we will open mono-brand stores in our first year. Now, that's, and maybe 15 of them, because, so you have to build, imagine how many shoes that means, how many apparel that means, what inventory, and all of that. So it's a complex thing. So I can't land my thing on this is what we want to build, because the opportunity and the demand is unquestionable. Yeah. That's not the problem. The problem is how do you stitch the entire thing together.
Interesting. Let's cover the facilities part now, and then we'll handle all the things that worry us. So this is something I think Naresh told me. The paradox here is that supply will create demand. So by facilities, I mean baddie courts, swimming pools, turfs, etc. And they've historically been horrible businesses to build, for lack of a better word. Takes too long to pay back. You never get enough utilization. And that's exactly the business that Naresh is building. And so I'm looking forward to hear what's changing with the context that I believe you when you say supply is required to create demand, and it won't be the reverse, which means there is going to be a period of time where capital will go down the drain, but you're effectively creating that background. And but the supply will be split into two types, right? One is the infrastructure in the facility, and second is the coaches. Right? Yeah. So I want to explore what that creation looks like with you, and then with Mohit, you and Abhishek, I want to see if in all of our primaries, again, one thing that came out with us, anybody who tries any sport/activity for the first time, the reason they buy a brand is very simply because their trainer/coach told them to. And this is across kids, older women, etc. So is there a channel that you guys have thought of? Why not? And how much of a real boost can you create? Is that an awareness channel, a GTM channel, like Gymshark got built just on that community, right? So how do you guys think about that? But we'll cover the facilities first.
No, I think supply does create demand. There's no doubt about it. Generally, with respect to supply, there's also the new shiny object. This thing that the new gym looks spanking new.
Suddenly everybody's playing pickleball.
Suddenly everybody's there. Then then the next gym opens, everybody goes there, etc. So I think it all comes back to patience. I mean, my own history with building an online business, I started with the mindset that, offline is scary. Your paybacks, or capex, oh my god, paybacks, all of that, right? I have realized it is way less scary than online businesses. I mean, the net P&L of offline any day still looks a lot better. So you got to first get over this mindset that, hey, building a digital business is yes, it's faster scale, it's also faster burn. It's also the quickest way to run through all your capital as well. So I think don't be afraid of offline businesses is my first point. Yes, it takes more time, it takes more patience, but they are historically over entire human evolution always been the more successful model, right? I think the typical principles of retail apply here as well. Location is everything. You've got to spend enough time, and now there's a lot of evolution of tools that tell you exactly what kind of one advantage of fitness centers or sports centers in India, density is very high. So you can always be sure that unless you get your location grossly wrong, there are enough people living around for you to cater demand to, right? So you have to be patient. Just like retail stores, your location is everything. You have to spend enough time scouting enough sites, just spend the hard yards in the market, walk around, climb stairs, all of that. But once you get a store right, it pretty much right away is a hit. It doesn't take months and years to fill up a gym. If you've got the location right, your product is the right one. Pretty much instantaneously, you start seeing demand, you start seeing cash flows, you start seeing your payback kind of happening. So it's all about being patient, because once you get it right, it is a cash cow. A gym that makes money will most likely continue to make money unless you allow the product to degrade or somebody else comes and opens a much better gym right next to you, etc. So I think, so that's one. Of course, I think typically when you open a gym, there are multiple facets to it. Of course, there is equipment, which typically contributes to 40-50% of the capex. The balance goes into civil, interiors, and all of that. And to do this at scale, you obviously have to build significant advantage.
How many gyms are you running?
So we have about 600. 300 of them we own. 300 are combination of franchised and marketplace gyms. And across about 45 cities.
And how long does it take typically to know that this gym's working and it's going to work versus
30 days before the gym opens.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, pretty much. Most gyms start selling memberships early on. It is the earliest demand signal. So if you're opening a gym on August 1st, you start sales from July 1st, and I pretty much know if it's a hit or a dud right then. I mean, again, it's location. The moment you put up a board, and fortunately now we enjoy enough brand salience so that the moment we put up a Cults board, people do come and inquire. They want to know, when it's coming up, etc. So I get that signal well before I open the gym. Again, if it's not like I can do something about it if the signal is bad, I am stuck, which is why I take my time to open them. But it starts paying back right away. It's not it's not one of those online business. हाँ CAC नीचे आ जाएगा.
Eventually देखो
2
CM
साल
पे
में CAC
दिखेगा.
नीचे आ जाएगा. हाँ LTV बढ़ जाएगा. नहीं. Payback कर रहा है तो फटाफट से कर रहा है, नहीं तो नहीं कर रहा है. So
what outside of gym? So you're also exploring pools and baddie courts and whatever, multiple other. How do you think of the other non-gym sort of turfs opening?
Yeah, I think swimming is interesting because Indian adults just don't know how to swim. It's just a skill set that people have never picked up growing up. So most of the people today who come to our swimming pools are trying to learn how to swim. If you just visit one of our pools, 20% of the area are lap swimmers who are you're churning out lap after lap. The other 80% is either kids or adults learning how to swim. So I think swimming is interesting that way. And I know game theory is here and you guys are building a lot of pools. Learning to swim is a big thing, and it is something that I think needs to be built. Otherwise, we're all and this whole trend of vacations to beaches, etc., is also propagating that. Going there, not knowing how to swim, people then come back and be like, swimming to seekna at least basic life skill hai. Other sports, badminton is by
Is
far.
there a paucity of coaches or just servicing? Is that an issue in India, or demand ke liye hai? You have enough quality coaches?
No, I think it's no. You don't have enough quality coaches, but training coaches is not that big a deal. You can find enough people to hire and train. I think retention does become a challenge because if you're a typical gym trainer or you're a sports coach, beyond a point, career progression does become a challenge. Yeah. Especially if you're a gym trainer 5 years in, typically our trainers start somewhere age 23 to 25. By the time they're 30, their body has taken a beating. And from there on, you have to have added skill sets. You had to have built certifications. You've got to have learned a little bit about sports medicine. Becoming a personal trainer is the next progression, etc. So typically, the career doesn't last forever. A trickle of trainers end up opening gyms themselves. Some of them go into personal training, but a lot of them do need to, after a point, start looking for other forms of employment. And today with the gig economy, being a delivery boy in Swiggy pays decently well. So there's also that temptation. You come to the big city, you're doing your thing as a gym trainer, and then suddenly you realize there are many, many options for employment for me. So yeah, I won't say finding trainers is that big a deal. Retention is, and creating long-term career progression is a challenge.
How do you guys think of this sort of? There's always this parallel economy potentially through trainers, and everybody always has that on the slide, right? कि हम trainers के through जाएंगे. Is that a viable channel? How much of a channel? Are there real influencers? Can that be tapped?
So I think for us, it has been a way to reach out to sports teams till now. So we were trying to understand, actually not trainers, but coaches. We were trying to understand for the longest time, how do we get into sports teams partnerships basically without actually funding them or paying some money, right? Because that ROI, I think, between all of us doesn't really pay out. Like if you sponsor an athlete, most probably you can justify it as a brand spend, but no way it's going to ever come back to you, basically. In most scenarios, at least that's what I've seen at least. We obviously aspirationally wanted to work with folks at Liverpool, Manchester United, all these soccer clubs. Like obviously you grow up thinking about those people using a product, etc. And obviously those are multi-million-dollar deals. So we thought that, who's the least interesting person in this mix that we can go after in these clubs? And turns out these are coaches or junior coaches also. So we reached out to them through, again, LinkedIn. I don't know why, but yeah, LinkedIn, and started sending them the product, demoing the dashboards to them, talking through technology, long process, 6-7 months. They use the product, give feedback, make changes to the dashboard the way they want. They get a few more athletes involved, bench players, and then the bench players recruit the main players. And I think right now, because of this effort, we're close to around, I think, 35 soccer teams globally.
Wow.
And around 7 cycling teams overall, including the best cycling team in the world, Team Emirates, including the best cyclist in the world, Tadej Pogacar, also wears the ring. But yeah, basically.
Does he wear the ring?
Yes. So all of that has actually been guerrilla for us. Basically, helping them track their data, speaking to their teams almost on a daily basis, not expecting anything out of it, like unconditional love, basically, ek tarfa pyar, for so many months. And I think eventually these people say, look, okay, let me give it to basically the mainstream players and let's see what happens. And then you get an in. So I think for us, that has been one big channel to get teams on board. And by the way, they don't put our logo because that logo is paid for, but they also talk about it, right? They meet other people, they talk about it. So we're still talking about dinner table conversations. It's not like we are on their website, and except a few teams, but except those, we are not on anybody's t-shirt, etc. But apart from that, I think doctors I think the doctors who subscribe to folks like Peter Attia, etc., they started listening to this type of they started subscribing to these kind of products a lot more. I think their thing is that they want better accessibility of data, different types of charts.
Is there sports nutritionists, sports doctors, or just across?
Actually, so yes, sports medicine doctors, etc., are really large in this. But I think even traditional doctors who are moving from a cardiometabolic background, cardiothoracic background, surgeons who actually want to now say, look, I've done 600 or 1,000 surgeries. I do the same thing every time, and I don't think the patient is actually really improving. So I need to actually change my approach towards health. And those guys actually start becoming big believers in lifestyle. And they actually go really, really deep after that. They go full stack, they start putting in all the data work in, start educating people about these things. Again, some of these not necessarily legit stuff, also fad, but then some of this also really legit stuff. But I think it's all good. Basically, those are the two major channels.
Fantastic. Well, what about you? Obviously had success with the celebrity Virat Kohli in Puma days and now in the next avatar. Have you used this channel?
I'll quickly talk about coaches and trainers. So first, if it is sports performance, if there is a product which is actually is the tool of the trade for the sport, the they influence. So, for example, a cricket bat, which is directly, or a cricket pad, so the kids listen to, and then they become influencers, the coaches in sport. In fitness, there are three types in my mind, three types of, if you have to put cohorts. One is those who are influencers, fitness influencers. They have strong Instagram following, they have strong social media, they're putting content out there, and they definitely influence because there is aspiration attached to it. Then there is community influencers. Like there is this woman who is the fittest woman in the community, who's definitely an influencer. And then there are those who are actually doing fitness training as a part of their profession. They work at a gym, they come as a personal trainer, they work at Cult. But unfortunately, like Naresh said, that is not a preferred profession today, right? Unfortunately, unlike in the West, like the Gymshark model here, it has a fallacy because that's not a preferred profession. And hence, it naturally happens that they can't influence lifestyle choices of apparel or footwear as a recommendation. So if you're building a technical product enhancing the sport, coaches, academies, great place to build a community and use them. If you are building fitness and lifestyle products, then it's the larger influencers, the social following, celebrity influencers, you know, or you need to start your own fitness center and become an influencer yourself. Or you are a community-led, you know, everyone say, hey, this woman generally turns out to be the best yoga practitioner of the, you know, of the community. And unfortunately, like retail stores or the fitness trainers, not a preferred profession, and hence they're not able to inspire aspiration.
But sorry, just to sort of add to that, right? I think if you look at protein, I mean, trainers are a huge vehicle of sales for protein.
Equipment as well. So in our survey, what badminton racket to buy, what roller skate should I buy,
exactly.
all of that. If you're being taught something, I think they really do.
Yeah, so I mean, I get brands coming to Cult all the time saying, you know, we want your trainers to recommend this. You know, Reebok or Adidas would want our trainers to wear their kit, etc. So they definitely have influence, no doubt about it. You know, in terms of, you know, inside the gym, like the most sacred relationship, according to me, is with the trainer, not with the center manager, not with the brand, not with Cult. I mean, for customers, you know, Cult is the trainer, and they listen to them. They're willing to, which is why, you know, that is part of the prestige of that profession. Like, yes, it is tough to hire, but typically where we have seen success in terms of trainers is like our modus operandi has been to go look for these grassroots sports people who haven't quite made it, right? Like if you haven't made it to, you know, the national team in your early 20s in any sport that you are, that is around the time that you're realizing that this is not going to be my profession, and then you are trying to at that point of time think, okay, what other skill sets can I build? This is when you join Indian Railways, Indian Oil, you know, banks, and all of that time, right? Things, right? That's where we found the most success in. Like when we get people like those in, they're still fit. They still live a pretty disciplined life, and they know what it takes to, you know, lead that kind of a life, and they have, you know, the basic fitness and the discipline, and they, of course, know what training is all about. What we come in and do is really teach them, you know, interpersonal skills, how to talk to a consumer, etc. So when they take on the profession of a trainer, the respect that they see from members is something that, you know, really, you know, attracts them to their job. So like that's why I said hiring people to become trainers is not a challenge. I mean, it's never something that we've struggled with. It is okay. Once you do that for 5 years, 7 years, then, you know, what do you do next is the problem. And yes, very much they can sell products. We've shied away from it because, you know, we want that relationship to be still a bit sacred. You know, you're here for training, and that's what the trainer is here for, not to, you know, sell you all kinds of products and, like, you know, really become a salesman. So we've stayed away from it, but they are a legit sales channel. So anybody who's thinking of building, especially foods in the fitness space, should be thinking of trainers and coaches as
we've
viable
heard
channel.
the same. Okay, so last question, because I'm really hungry. I'm sure all of you guys are as well. We already get the takeaway that you've got to be patient if you're building the segment. It's going to take a while. But very quickly, if I have to ask each of you guys for one advice for somebody starting up in this space, or they're looking to build or thinking of starting up, etc., what's the one piece of advice you'd like them to remember as they head home tonight?
Absolute focus on creation, whether it is how do you create a brand, how do you create great designs. So creation is going to drive growth in our category, right? So absolute strong focus on creating uniqueness. And of course, then is operations and supply chain. But I think ability to create, because that's where we as Indians in fashion and sports wear and all of that have not had a history.
Yeah, if you're a founder building anything in fitness and sports, please only hire people who share your passion for the area. I have seen it make some massive, massive difference. People who look at this as the next cool startup or something that's a trend, it's like, it'll look good on my resume, etc. No matter how talented they are, no matter how good they are, do not hire them, because again, this is an area that needs deep passion. It's not a business that's built in cubicles in an office. You have to be on the ground. You have to be talking to consumers. You have to experience your own product. So please only hire people that share at least 50% of the passion that you do as a founder.
I think on similar lines, but if you actually end up finding people who actually use your own product, like basically your own employees, if they use your own product on a daily basis, if that is your org, I think then for most scenarios you'll end up actually iterating faster, having the right kind of instinct. You will basically be ahead, sometimes even sync with the market, because the first signal you're going to get out of any new product launch or any new iteration is from your own people, right? Forget user surveys and all that. So if you can get if you're a company of 100 people or 50 people, if you can get entire base, maybe 90% of the base, to actually use your product on a daily basis. Of course you can force people as well, but after that, basically people would drop off and they'll start wearing their own things that they like and start tracking the way they wearing their own Apple watches or start wearing their own shoes, etc. But if you see that this curve is improving, I think that is like success close to heart in some ways, or success close to your home. That's your Stalingrad, right, in many ways. So that's what I would say.
Perfect. I think that's it from our side. Thank you all for joining us. Big hand for our panelists.